Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, brothers, and sisters. Welcome back to the Armed Forces Virtual Racing Cup here at AK Esports. Really excited for this. Say that every week. I know it's a broken record statement, and I do not apologize for making it. Oh, we head to the wondrous Ardennes Forest for Spa-Francorchamps for a second endurance race of the season. Wow, what a place, what a venue. Really looking forward to this. My name is Chris Buxton. I'll be one of your commentators throughout tonight's festivities. I am joined, always a pleasure to be joined by the hero of the Highlands. It is Mr. John Monroe.
Hello, Chris. How are you getting on? I mean, it's Spa, so I'm guessing good.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to this. Every track we've got in this season, it's got a wide range of challenges, a lot to look forward to. But I mean, who doesn't like Spa?
Well, exactly. Who doesn't like Spa? I mean, the thing about Spa is, it's almost boringly popular because everyone loves it. But there's a reason everyone loves it, and it's because it is incredible. So many brilliant corners throughout the circuit, fast-flowing nature, a lot of variation as well. You've got slow-speed corners, you've got heavy braking zones, but you've also got huge commitment-based corners, multiple apexes. But, I mean, we don't really need to gush too much about Spa because everyone knows how good Spa is. And what really makes this series great is the drivers that we have out there on circuit, and this season has been incredible. We've had so much competition at the front of the field, in the mid-pack, and towards the rear. Every single race has been exciting. We've seen numerous different winners, and there you can see the track map for today's event. You can also see there in the weather, we've got clear weather, but 46% on the rain radar, so we'll keep an eye on that one. You did also say earlier, Chris, it is of course an endurance race tonight, so one 40-minute race instead of the two 20-minute races. We did see one of those at Silverstone earlier in the season, and it was epic, so good chance we'll see another epic one tonight.
Oh, absolutely so. GT machinery at Spa-Francorchamps. How can this possibly go wrong? Especially if the weather has anything to do with it. That is going to, oh my God, a wet Spa. I know it's less than 0.5%, which at Spa means almost certainty. So let's be honest. And because of the nature of the circuit, if it does rain, it doesn't clear particularly quickly. So that is going to be a big challenge. Pit stop race for this one, as John was explaining. So the drivers will visit the pits, hopefully only once. But again, if they encounter difficulties, the drivers hope they don't have a very long way to limp back. Nearly 7 kilometers, 4.5 miles of amazing circuit ahead of us. Let's have a look then at how the championship standings form. So Ryan Martin holding on to a quite commanding lead up top for the RAF. There he is, just under 900 points under his belt. But Pete Plasto in the Aston, not an insurmountable amount difference. Bear in mind, we will have drop scores that will be taken into consideration before the season's end. So bear that in mind. So Ryan Martin will basically hit like a wall where there will come a point where he will have to drop a considerable amount of points, but by that point he may already be unassailable. We will see. We have seen Ryan struggle in some particular points, especially when the weather has had something to say. So he is not insurmountable. Adam Barron, beg your pardon, in third position, hot on the heels of Pete Plasto. Tom Stevens in fourth, Chris Pawley in fifth, David Rent sixth, Darren Bear is seventh, Bradley Crop eighth, Dan Gross nine, and James King round out the top 10 of our championship standings. Well, we know that we know, again, purely through numbers, the RAF are most numerically represented. That's why they have they've pretty much sewn that up. So really is between the Army and the veterans. As far as team championship is concerned, the Royal Navy, again, have less drivers. There's only been 4 leading up to this point representing our Royal Navy. But we thank each and every member of our armed services, whether serving or veteran. We thank them very much for their service, nonetheless, whatever flavor that takes. Now, interestingly, before the, well, actually, I'll come on to what I was about to say shortly. So this is signified the halfway stage, or slightly over the halfway stage. We had Lime Rock Park, and that was chaos in the second race. Of course, we're not having a second race this time around. It's a single 40-minute race, as John was explaining earlier. As we've crossed over halfway through the season, John.
I know it's passed incredibly quickly, as we expected it would, and already we're beginning to look towards final standings and things like that. It's gone by in a flash. We're talking about Ryan Martin and drop scores, and obviously the fact that he's going to hit a wall eventually. I actually think the drop score system is going to suit Ryan Martin, because he did have a specifically bad round at Oulton Park with a DNF. And I feel like some of the drivers around him have been more consistent, but not necessarily as quick. So it tends to, with drop scores, favour those who are quick more than consistent, because you can get away with a couple of bad races. And I think that's what Ryan Martin's been. But do not get me wrong, he's been both quick and consistent. We have just seen him facing the wrong direction a couple of times. But he was sensational, wasn't he, at Lime Rock Park last time out. And then we had that phenomenal last race. Darren Berris with the defensive drive of a lifetime to hang on for the race win, while chaos ensued around him. And Pete Plasto, second in the championship, came from right at the back of the field, up facing the wrong way on lap 1 to second place in the end. So it was a remarkable race.
Absolutely. So that's we were screaming. Well, I certainly was screaming away in just pure joy and entertainment at Lime Rock Park. Sadly, we didn't find another gnome, and I somehow feel we may not find another one. That's going to be one of my lasting memories of Lime Rock Park, is the Marshall's Post with the garden gnome sat outside it. But yeah, what a great event we enjoyed last time out. Very much looking forward to what we have in store this time, and also for our remaining rounds. Again, we've got Knock Hill. That is going to be another chaotic round. Really, really looking forward to that. Navara, a track I'm less familiar with. So again, looking forward to that. But our drivers have always put on an amazing, amazing spectacle, and I expect nothing less from Spa-Francorchamps tonight.
Certainly not. I mean, it's not only a great track to drive, obviously we know it produces good racing, and I think in these GT4 cars, it's going to be perfectly suited for that. You're definitely going to have drivers at the front being sent offline, side-by-side action, and it's going to bring the drivers behind into the mix. We also have a new driver in the mix tonight as well. Looks like we've got Timothy Hastings joining the series to bring us our second BMW, which is fantastic to see more representation for the Bavarian marque. Chris Boland, of course, our reigning champion so far, has been flying the flag for BMW and not having the greatest season so far, has to be said. He's been doing a solid job, but he's not right at the top like he would hope to be. I think that BMW's not potentially been performing as well for him as the Aston Martin did last season. So it'll be interesting to see now with Timothy Hastings in the field whether BMW, with a couple of cars, can actually feature a little bit more right at the sharp end. And at the moment, we're yet to see how quick Timothy's going to be. But in qualify or practice, I should say, he was kind of in the middle of the pack. So I think he's definitely going to play a part tonight as well.
Now, we've been used to Ryan Martin dominating every single session as far as times are concerned. He was not top of practice. That honor went to the aforementioned number 1 BMW of Chris Boland. So this could be the swan song of the BMW. We will see. And exactly as you say, John, we do have the unknown driver, unknown to this series, I should say, of Timothy Hastings. Looking forward to seeing how the second BMW does in qualifying and also race room. We've had a very late joiner actually in the session. Adrian Warmington has literally just joined the session, so we have got a fantastic turnout for tonight's event. Really, really looking forward to this. Again, usual array of Mercedes being the most numerically represented marque. The Astons were mixing it towards the top as well, but all of our marques, the McLaren struggled a little bit more. Steve Wardle and Scott Eastwood are two McLaren pilots. But we saw Mercedes, Aston, BMW and Porsche all in the top ranks of practice. And the times, bearing in mind this is a 2.5 minute lap, they were tenths, if not hundreds of seconds apart.
Yeah, it was crazy, wasn't it? Closer than you would expect for a long lap like Spa. Not necessarily closer than you expect from this series, but even for this series, it was impressive. And that just means we're gonna see some exciting racing. We're gonna see close battles. Imagine if there was a little sprinkle of rain midway through the race. We obviously had a wet race earlier in the season at Thruxton, but it was wet throughout. And I can imagine a dry race, maybe potentially with the rain coming down around the pit stop phase. That is an exciting prospect. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen here. And as you say, so much great representation from various marques in the series. Yes, Mercedes is the most popular in terms of numbers out there on the circuit, but I mean, we've had Aston Martins fighting for wins with Pete Plasto throughout the season. Obviously, Chris Boland has been up there in the BMW. Adam Barron in the Porsche has been fighting for wins, as well as Tom Stevens on the podium last time as well. And then, of course, you say Steve Wardle, Scott Eastwood, and James King this season in the McLaren, although I don't see James King at the moment in the session, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, just such great representation from all the different marques. And I think the balance of performance that iRacing has managed to achieve with these GT4s is mighty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. So curious, our newest arrival, Tim Hastings, had not left the pit lane. Now, he could well be opting to start from the back, being that he's a late season joiner. There is no rule to say that he has to do that, as far as I am aware, but he has not come out in qualifying. He was a real solid midfield in the timings for practice. So again, no slouch, again, considering the quality of the field we've got. Even being midfield, even in the kind of lower midfield, is still a very impressive feat. Oh, just as I say that, he's now left the pit lane. So he has left a little bit later than the rest of the field. All cars now out on track for qualifying. Ryan Martin has, good grief, to see the time he's just set, which is somewhat eye-watering in comparison to a number of others. But again, we're still seeing 0.3 of a second between himself and the next Mercedes, which is Chris Pawley at the moment. Then less than 0.2 of a second, Matthew Forrest in the lead Aston. Then it's at less than 0.2 again to Pete Plasto. It's barely a hundredth of a second to Matty Chambers in the next Mercedes. So very, very close times again.
Absolutely. And the man who's impressed me so far in this qualifying session, just for the time screens here, is Matthew Forrest, who's up in third place in the Aston Martin, just ahead of Pete Plasto, who's obviously second in the championship and has been really, really strong all season. So shout out to Matthew Forrest. Good job early on in qualifying, but of course there's still 13 minutes for him to better that time. So we'll see how things develop as the session goes on.
Absolutely. So about half the field have set a initial qualifying time so far. And as everybody is now circulating, so we're going to have a very, very busy field. And okay, we now have our first under 129 lap time on the board. 128, good God, 228.981. Chris Boland again. So he was top of the times in practice, as said, and he has just nailed it. A 228.981 in the BMW, the car that, as we said, seems to have struggled a bit in this season. And wow, Spa seems to be singing for Chris Boland right now.
Certainly is. I mean, that's a phenomenal effort from Chris. And as you say, he was on form in practice. He's also on form in qualifying, but a long way to go still. Ryan Martin a couple of tenths off the back, but we're already seeing times breaking into the 2-minute 28-second mark. So be interesting to see how far that can be pushed. And I believe we're about to get first live pictures here. And there we are. So there is your debutant, Timothy Hastings, in the number 50 BMW with the flames along the side. So we'll maybe take a lap of Spa on board with our rookie in the BMW. As I say, we're not familiar with Timothy Hastings. Some of the drivers in the series might be familiar with Timothy. He might be familiar with other series within this community, but he's new to this particular championship. So it'll be very interesting to see how he gets on here as we start an onboard lap of Spa.
That's Sean Watson in the Aston Martin that is staying over to the right-hand side. Oh no, he's coming back to the racing line, which may not be pleasing Timothy Hastings too much. Into the source, the slowest corner on the track happens to be turn 1 in this layout. Now down the hill, he's going to be picking up a fair amount of slipstream. This isn't the place where he wants the slipstream actually, but he's going to be grabbing some anyway off the number 89 Aston. And you're hearing him just bleed a little bit out of the throttle. These cars are a bit uncomfortable trying to take Eau Rouge, which is the part of the bottom of that particular section, and then Radion up onto the Kemmel Straight. They can't quite do it at full crank, but so you can hear them breathe out the throttle and just manage their pace as Timothy Hastings, I think, is trying to figure out what Sean Watson is doing. So this lap has been very much compromised into Les Combes and then into Malmedy, the exit of the chicane complex. I know some of the corner names may well have changed, but these are the names I am going to be using for tonight. down the hill towards Bruxelles as Ryan Martin has just climbed to the top of the timing tree with a 2:28.807. Oh, never mind. Before I even have a chance to read the timeout, Chris Boden resumes his authority at the top of the timing tree as Tim comes through Speaker's Corner, or no name, call it as you will. Down to Pouon then, the double left-hander. Very easy to get this one wrong. Downhill, so you've got to get your braking point right. The car wants to just wander off into the wilderness. And Timothy Hastings managing the BMW very, very nicely. Now down towards the Fania chicane. Get your braking point just under the overhang there. The nose not wanting to bite on that initial part of the chicane. This lap is already compromised anyway. It's more times getting onto the board. More sub 229s now being scored by our drivers. Exit of Campus, which is our first right-hander, then into Stavolo. Oh, nowhere near the apex there. That's going to wander onto the gravel. Yep, which it does on the exit of Stavolo. Now the curve, Paul Freya, this long, flat-out right-hander, jumping out of the way of one of our Porsches. That'll be why Timothy Hastings was wandering off into the dust. Then into Blanchimont, the double apex left-hander. He's jumping out of someone else's way. That, I think, maybe is... there's Barris. He's jumped up. Darren Barris, indeed, and that's somebody else. It looks like Timothy is being trying to get out of everybody's way. That's, I must admit, I do quite like that livery. I know everybody else is Armed Forces related. That one very much the standout in the fact that he's not emblazoned with the Armed Forces usual regalia. Across the line, we know that the lap was somewhat compromised, so Tim will line up for another one in the BMW.
Yeah, it was a shame actually, all happening through Origin Radio, and it seems like the 89 just in front of him of Sean Watson missed the corner essentially, which I would have thought invalidated the qualifying lap, but then they ran side by side into the chicane, and obviously Timothy had to back out, and that was it. So just a bit of a shame, a bit of a trip up there, and that could be, you know, drivers getting used to each other as well, with being a new driver to the series, but hopefully he'll go again, and he clearly has a little bit more pace in the bank than that. Meanwhile, this battle for the top, it seems to be at the moment between, or it has been between Ryan Martin and Chris Boland, but Paulie's right there as well. Plasto not far behind either. I mean, 3/10 around Spa. 3/10 can, at some circuits, sound like a reasonable margin, but here at Spa, I mean, it could literally just be the difference between getting the bus stop chicane right or wrong, as Martin does a 28.646 to jump back to the top, but Boland has a chance to respond. He's going to cross the line. Is this going to be a fast lap for Boland? I've not seen the split time so far, but we'll see what happens when he crosses the line. And he does not improve on that particular lap, does Boland, so he stays second, but still plenty of opportunities for more laps.
Indeed so. It was just 0.004 of a second between Ryan Martin and Chris Paulie, second to third at the time. So again, such a tight margin on a very, very long lap. It was amazing to see. So Chris Boland, last season champion, is then on another run through Eau Rouge, up and over Radio, and he comes. There is Darren Berris. He is caught behind one of the Porsches, as that's Tom Stevens. A good improvement there, up into 6th position in the number 4 Porsche, with David Reg, who does tend to have some support with him in the chat. There's another improvement there. Dan Cross jumping up into 10th position there. So who is it that Darren Berris is caught up behind? Possibly Ben Weston. It did need Ben Weston in the white and purple Porsche. So Darren Berris may feel a little bit aggrieved on this particular occasion. That is, I think, a newcomer of Tim Hastings behind, disappearing out of existence. Towards the final chicane they come. And will this be an improvement for Darren Berris? I suspect it won't be, because I think he has been compromised throughout the course of the lap. What was Ben Weston? So Ben Weston hasn't put a time on the board as yet. Timothy Hastings does get a valid time this time, with 2:31.320 in the background of that particular shot. Bradley Kropp leaving the pits for another run. See how well they can do. You can see again the top 7, 8 and a bit tenths of a second, separating a fair chunk of our top contingent.
It's really not much, is it? It was good to see Darren Berris out there pushing along. He'll be riding a little bit of a wave at the moment after that fantastic drive at Lime Rock last time out. And Matthew Forrest has been impressing me so much so far during this qualifying and practice session. Still sitting in 5th place, so clearly the pace for Forrest is right there. He's right behind Plasto still, and then there's a bit of a gap back to Tom Stevens, as we were talking about. So It looks like the top 5 have got a bit of a pace advantage at the moment. Don't be surprised to see maybe the likes of Chambers, Wrench, potentially Stevens getting a little bit closer to that front group. But it is hard to string a whole lap together at Spa. I mean, 2 minutes 30 seconds is a long lap time. There are plenty of corners, plenty of opportunities to make those little mistakes. Meanwhile, we have Chris Boland setting a 2:28.665 on that particular lap. So again, it's I think that might actually be a tiny improvement there. It is an improvement from Boland, but he's just still 200 of a second behind Martin, as we see Adam Barron go up to position number 8. John Finch now goes up to P6, just ahead of Stevens, so he's getting actually pretty close to the top 5 as well. It's been an impressive qualifying so far for Finch, I would definitely have to say. But looking at the times between the top 2, I mean, we've seen a few occasions this year where Ryan Martin has been just comfortably out in front with a bit of a gap back to P2 in qualifying. That is absolutely not the case. Even if Martin does take pole here, we can see clearly that Boland is going to be a threat throughout this entire race, because I don't think there's anything between the two cars.
Absolutely. And, very different marks as well. They behave in very different ways. We've seen the Mercedes very much have the rule of the roost, but exactly as you say, John, does not seem to be the case here. Steve Wardle in the McLaren. The McLaren's seemingly struggling here at Spa. So the twistier circuits potentially favouring the little McLaren a little bit more than the wide open spaces here in the Ardennes. Here's Darren Berris, a little bit more free of traffic this time, but doesn't complete the lap. He heads back into the pit lane. No harm in practicing pit stop is Timothy Hastings in the BMW. Now, is this a bit more of a representative lap for him? Let's see what he's able to do. No, there was not an improvement on that occasion. But now no traffic ahead. And the time is ticking away. Only 3 more minutes of qualifying. It is a 2.5-minute lap. So 2 laps at most for everybody that is currently out on circuit.
Oh, it's a big shunt in for Matthew Forrest just ahead of Barron. That is going to unfortunately ruin the lap for Barron, because he couldn't get over to the left to take the natural racing line, and unfortunately that is going to spell disaster. But obviously nothing Forrest could do there to get out the way any quicker, because you have to be stationary and holding a button for over a second on iRacing to escape back to the pit lane. It will be the end of Forrest's qualifying. Barron will get 1 more lap. Hopefully he's got the fuel to do so, but just really unfortunate timing there, and a big shunt in the end for Forrest. As we see Ryan Martin now do a 2:28.582, so just stretching that advantage ever so slightly. But there goes Chris Boland to the top, 2:28.354. So the pace is obviously there for Chris Boland, and what a lap that is. They've been obviously just increasing things incrementally so far in this session, but that 1 lap from Boland has really put a little bit of breathing space there between him and the Scotsman, and Ryan Martin will only have 1, maybe a maximum of 2 opportunities to respond. I think it'll just be the 1 though, so we'll have to pay attention to this. And of course, Chris, this is one of 3 of the most important qualifying sessions of the season, because there's no reverse grid tonight. However you qualify for this race will be your starting position for the only race, and of course it's double points as well, so these drivers will have to get this qualifying session right.
Yeah, and they'll all be aware of that as well. So it's a case of try and focus and get on with the job at hand, but everybody knows the pecking order. Everybody knows their strengths and weaknesses and compared to those around them. So this is a track that everybody knows. Every sim racer has done Spa in usually a variety of different machinery, but certainly in GT machinery. There is the champion-elect, Ryan Martin, the 86 Mercedes. Now, what is his sector times looking like at the moment? Difficult to say. We'll see what his second sector time is. It was a green sector 2 last time around. He's just going to have to... finding 0.2 of a second sounds easy enough, but when the margins are already so narrow, that 0.2 gets more and more difficult to find. The Mercedes look really loose coming into the braking zone of the Fania chicane. Sim Hastings improves further with a 2:30.623, so slots himself into 13th position. Will start no higher than there, as the checkered flag is about 30 seconds away from dropping. Pete Plasto just crosses the line in time to start his final run of the night. But what can Ryan Martin do? Chris Boland, for reference, is a few corners behind. So Chris Boland can potentially answer, although I'm not seeing green sectors for the BMW.
We'll just have to keep an eye. This is probably going to be Ryan Martin's final lap here, heading into the chicane. I don't think he's going to cross the line in time, so it will be the final lap now for all of our competitors, and he's going to be ruining that he wasn't just a couple of seconds further up the road. Finding 2:10s may sound easy, but it's certainly not at this pace, and Martin does a 2:28.585. That's almost identical. It's 0.04 of a second slower than his previous lap time. That shows how on the limit he is and how on the pace he is. Boland just has a bit of an advantage. Now, Paulie's going to come across the line, but that lap is abandoned for the Welshman in third place. Boland's in the pit lane as well. Plasto could be one to keep an eye on. David Wrench down in 8th is on a lap at the moment, and he's only a 10th of a second behind Tom Stevens. So we could see a few changes here, but I think the front row, at least, based on the pace we've seen so far, is probably going to be set in stone.
I agree, but let's see who else has got any improvements to find as one of the Mercedes gets out of the way of David Wrench coming through. Matt Chambers jumps up into 8th with a 2:29.495 on the board. Bradley Kropp slots into 14th. That's every pixel of space available to David Wrench as he nearly wanders off the road on the exit of the final chicane. And that's 7th, a good improvement for David Wrench. Slots himself alongside Tom Stevens, who's about to cross the line. Does the number 4 Porsche improve? Tim Hastings is still on a lap, so he could improve. And Tom Stevens did not improve. Well, no, beg your pardon, he improved in time, but not position on that last lap. So Tim Hastings has abandoned that one. So no improvement to find. I think there's another couple of cars that may well still be circulating, but no improvement to find. So then it's a different pole sitter for this. Is this the first time we've had someone other than Ryan Martin? I have a feeling we've had someone else on the pole, but it's mainly been the Ryan Martin show up front. But it's the number 1 BMW of Chris Boland by 0.2 of a second. How many? I don't think anybody has had a 0.2 advantage over Ryan Martin. So yeah, we'll see how when we get to speak to the drivers at the end of the race. It'll be very interesting to hear their inputs on how these qualifying sessions went. So the grid will look like so. Chris Boland and Ryan Martin will have the front row. And then it is Chris Pauly and Pete Plasto. Your surname begin with P. Line up on row 2. Matthew Forrest and John Finch lines up on row 3, with David Wrench and Tom Stevens on row 4. Tom Stevens the lead of our Porsches. Pete Plasto the lead of our Aston Martins. Matt Chambers and Dan Cross have row 5. Adam Barron and Jack Trunwitt have row 6. Tim Hastings and Bradley Kropp, row 7. Jack Ajewski and Adrian Warmington, very late to qualifying. We didn't see Adrian in the practice. Line up on row 8. Darren Berris and Mark Gladwell have row 9. Then it's our 2 McLarens of Scott Eastwood and Steve Wardle on row 10, with Ben Weston and Sean Watson tail of the field on row 11. Again, bearing in mind that with the exception of Sean Watson that didn't set a representative lap time, the biggest gap is just under a second, and that's 11th to 12th. Adam Barron to Jack Trunwitt. Every other gap, bar 2, I beg your pardon, Scott Eastwood had a slightly over a second gap between himself and Mark Gladwell. So except for Jack and Scott, every gap is 0.6 of a second or less between each car. Some of them in the hundredths of a second. Absolutely unreal.
That's what we want to see here at Spa. It means we're going to have an exciting race. But what did I say earlier about Chris Boland? I said he's not having the best season, arguably. You know, I'm not saying he's having a bad season. The competition has stepped up, and Boland's still been there or thereabouts, but he's not been right at the top. And this is the reigning champion we're talking about. He may not have been the fastest driver last season. We had Stu McFadden setting the pace early on, but he was the best overall. So he will be looking to bounce back. But what a way to kind of take what I've said and basically throw it out the window, because he's stuck it on pole position in that BMW. He's been struggling a little bit with that car relative to the others so far this season. There's a reason why not many people picked it, but then comes to Spa and suddenly the car is alive and Chris Boland is back with the number 1 car on the number 1 spot. Can he hang on though from Ryan Martin? We know Chris Boland's racecraft is great. We've seen Ryan come unstuck a few times throughout the season, but ultimately we also know how fast Ryan can be and how well he can race his way to the front. So I'm expecting a bit of an epic duel here in this, I was about to say first race at Spa, in this only race at Spa. But also, Chris, how is fuel strategy and pit stop strategy going to come into this? Will we see some attempted undercuts? Will we see drivers going long? Will we see people taking less fuel at the start? We don't know, and that's what I love about racing.
Oh, very, very much so. Now, curiously, I saw, this is now changing, but it looks like some of the drivers were considering wet tyres. Really? I fear that may have been a mistake, but is that an indication? Aha, so that is why I was beginning to wonder whether there is rain on the radar. And production have confirmed that there is potential for rain. Now, we can't guarantee, we're fairly certain it will. We do not know how badly, but that essentially is the worst time, because some people will want to pit early, exactly as you were saying, John. Some people will, what fuel strategy people are going to run. They don't want the weather right in the middle. They would rather it was very early, so it decides the strategy for them. Being bang in the middle means they have to throw the dice on what strategy they run, and equally how badly it rains. Oh, go nowhere, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be absolutely phenomenal.
What are you talking about worst timing, Chris? It's the best timing because we get entertained. And I mean, as a driver, I think if you're at the front of the grid, you probably want the race to be a bit more boring. If you're towards the back, obviously the more randomness that's thrown in there, the better. But I mean, what would you be doing in this situation? If it were me, if I saw the rain on the horizon, potentially half an hour away, or the rain coming in 15 minutes, according to weatherman Tom, who's very trustworthy as a weatherman, you will have to wait and see. But I would definitely be, making sure my car had enough fuel just in case I needed to switch tires or do something to make any changes for the weather. I'd want to be prepared for that. But of course, we'll have to wait and see what these drivers do. Do you try and go short, hoping the rain comes soon? Do you take a risk? Who knows? And it's going to be very exciting to find out what the different strategies are at play here as we watch Adrian Warmington, P15. He'll be hoping for a better start this time than he had at Lime Rock. He was on the front row with the reverse grid. But he unfortunately dropped back on that opening lap, so hopefully he'll have a better start this time from 15th, just behind the debutant Hastings. We are seeing potentially Warmington might be on wet tyres, but I don't know. According to the graphic, he is on wets, but I don't know if that's true or not. We'll have to keep an eye out on that one, Chris. Bold move if he is, and maybe not the best for the start of this race.
No, I think that's a little bit optimistic, but here they come then around the final part of the chicane. Everybody buckle up. This is going to be a ride to remember. For some, it may well be one to forget. But look at that. Chris Boland has absolutely bolted. So then he's usually Ryan Martin that has the advantage at the start. But Chris Boland is going to be under all the pressure in the world along the Camel Straight. So then it's Boland from Martin from Paulie, your top three at the moment, as everybody is working their three through La Source. There's a few cars flirting with the gravel. I think Adrian Warmington is indeed on wets. He's already lost three as we're looking at, it's already a bit of a divide. The top five have a broken, top four. Pete Plasto on the back of Paulie, on the back of Martin, on the back of Boland. So Chris Boland built up a half a second gap between himself and Ryan Martin. The Mercedes having a look on the inside. He's not going to banzai from that far back. Absolutely not. And indeed doesn't. So Chris Boland did exactly what he needed to do. He built up enough of a gap to prevent the challenge into Les Combes, into the chicane for the first time. I'm asking, that's Ryan Martin and Chris Paulie having an argument on the exit of Malmedy. Look at that. The two Mercedes are line of stand. The black Mercedes of Chris Paulie, the Welshman, gets the inside line and gets second position. That puts Plasto in third. Ryan Martin completely wrong-footed and is now down into fourth and being challenged now by Matt Forrest.
Actually, just about to say, I wonder if Martin and Boland are going to work together, but throw that out the window because Martin's lost the position to Paulie through the chicane, and as you say, wrong-footed off the racing line, and just look what happens. It's so easy to drop further and further back. When you're running side by side at Spa, positions can go in a flash if you're not on that racing line, but I think Martin's managed to stem the flow at the moment. He's just gone down the inside of Matty Forrest once again, and retains fourth place, but he has now got Paulie and Plasto between himself and Boland, and we know how fast Boland is here at Spa, as that was Chambers running wide on the exit. Meanwhile, Ajewski is facing the wrong direction, and he's going to have to get that Mercedes turned around. Warmington goes through in the Mercedes that may or may not be on wets. I don't think he's going to be on wets because he's actually managed to stick with the field okay. And I don't know if iRacing even lets you take wet tyres when the track's completely dry, but I might be wrong. In fact, Tom, the weatherman, is also an expert in tyres and tells me it does. Thank you, Tom. But yeah, this is the other Tom, Tom Stevens, currently running P8, just 0.3 per second off wrench, but he's going to be defending from the wild Matty Chambers, who was on the grass just a second ago. Let's see what happens now as they approach bus stop for the first time.
John Finch under all the pressure from David Reg as well. That's a big move, or a very missed braking point, but well recovered from Matty Chambers. Outside line coming into the chicane. Oh, that's a spin. That's our newcomer. Timothy Hastings gets spun around on the chicane, does the wise thing, gets out of the way, almost gets a punch in the face there from Gladwell as he's now recovering. So that's unfortunate, but has time to try and recover in the BMW. We'll see what he is able to do as he has dropped down to 17th. But Chris Boland is stretching his legs up top. Then it's Paulie, Plasto, and Martin, the next few positions, and not far behind. Matt Forrest is looking lively in this particular race. He's already challenged Ryan Martin once, fallen a little bit off the back of the Scotsman now. Matty Chambers still glued to the back of David Wrench. We'll see if he's able to make a challenge. The pink accented Mercedes gets out of the slipstream. Does he get alongside coming into the final chicane? Not quite, as David Wrench, great defensive driving, and maintains that 7th position.
Brilliant stuff from David Wrench. The YouTube chat will be going wild. We've had a lot of fans following David Wrench throughout the season, and that was superb around the outside, just hanging on to that position. We all thought Matty Chambers had it covered, and to be fair to Matty, he didn't want to go in too deep there. He made sure to get that car stopped, and Wrench just held on around the outside. So good stuff from the Mercedes driver. It hangs on to P7. Meanwhile, John Finch explores the grass through what used to be No Name, but it's now Speaker's Corner. I prefer No Name. No Name's a more iconic name, actually, which is ironic in itself. Meanwhile, Adam Barron down in P12, a man we're used to seeing a bit closer to the sharp end, Chris, but he's down in 12th in this one so far, 0.3 off the back of Bradley Kropp, who's been making great inroads this season as well. So interesting to follow his progress, see if he can make it through. Meanwhile, there's Chambers on Wrench again, and unfortunately they've come together. Great save by David Wrench, and all of that has actually checked up the field. So Stevens then goes through on Dan Cross in the mayhem, but that was a close call. Looks like the two just came together. Wrench almost losing the car, but did a fantastic job to save it.
God, he caught that perfectly well. Racing instinct just got him to nail the opposite lock at the right time. As right behind David Wrench is Dan Cross and Bradley Kropp, still side by side with Adam Barron. Ringside seat for the two behemoths ahead of him. But one of the Porsche is a little bit outgunned here as Tom Stevens through that melee is up into 8th position. Adam Barron, as you say, John, is usually more towards the sharper end. Perhaps the Porsche not quite as suited to the long flowing elements of Spa as some of the others. Ryan Martin is gaining the fastest lap, so he's starting to find his pace again. Maybe it was just a cautious start. We heard a couple of races ago that, yeah, he was concentrating more on consistent, steady driving more than just all guns blazing that he's done in the past. I suspect we may well see a bit more of the aggressive Ryan Martin this time around. Now he's got some time to make up, but Pete Plasto will be very much under pressure this time around.
Certainly will. And yeah, I mean, Martin's 2:29.0 is a strong lap. I mean, that's only 0.7 off the qualifying pace, bearing in mind that Ryan will, of course, have race fuel in that car, and the track's still coming in. So great stuff from the Scotsman, keeping in touching distance with Paulie and Plasto, of course, but he's going to have to, you know, keep that up, because if he's not careful, Boland is going to run away with this one. It has to be said, though, Paulie and Plasto, I mean, we said they were close in qualifying. It was just a two-car battle, really, for pole position, but the other two were only a couple of tenths away. And I think Paulie and Plasto are proving that, you know, they can't be taken lightly in this race. They have to be considered. Meanwhile, it looks like Wrench may have had a bit of a minor issue heading through the chicane, because there through goes Dan Cross, and right on the back of Wrench is Bradley Kropp. Of course, he's recovering from that incident on the previous lap, but it seems like he's still getting in and amongst the fight. Meanwhile, grass being thrown up onto the circuit, and you can see it there. That's a kind of new feature to iRacing, just having more marbles and more trackside grass and dirt coming onto the road and making a difference. So you can already clearly see it visually here at Spa, looking fantastic, and drivers will have to be careful to stay on the racing line to keep a high level of grip. But now we look back from the Mercedes at Bradley Kropp in the Aston Martin, looking menacing on the back. Kropp's going to get a nice exit here as Wrench runs a little wide. It's not an overtaking spot, but what Krop can do is get as close as possible, get a good exit here, and then he's going to have a run down towards Blanchimont as we now jump on board with the Aston Martin driver. Of course, Brad Krop representing the British Army, but he's run wide. He's run wide on the way out of Stavelot towards Blanchimont, and that is going to kill that run. He'll now be watching in his mirrors for Adam Barron.
Oh, that's Scott Eastwood that's gone for a bit of a wander. Again, just go a tiny bit too deep. Stavelot, so detrimental. You lose all that momentum and you carry that mistake a very, very long way. All the way through Coeur-Porfrère, all the way through Blanchimont into the next braking zone at the final chicane. So the clouds are gathering in some places. You're still seeing shadows out there. There's still plenty of sunshine, but we know the rain is looming. It's not 100% sure when it will strike and how heavily it will hit. So still some twists and turns in this tail as yet, as Scott Eastwood had a fairly decent run through the chicane, but he's got all kinds of pressure. And Darren Barrett, that is a very early pit stop for the Aston Martin. Curious decision. Now, was there damage to his car that's forced him into a very early pit stop? Oh, the lead four very, very close together. Boland, Pauly, Plastow and Martin, your top four.
Incredible sight as they head down the straight there. Pauly does keep blinking and disappearing, so don't worry, he is going to reappear. Just a few issues potentially with his connection, which is going to be stressing out some of the drivers around him, I am sure, but he's back now, and you can see, you could, that's a blanket you could throw over those four cars. A pretty long, thin blanket, but you could, you could do it, as they now head down towards Brussels. And yeah, I think it's interestingly, it's actually Pauly on the back of Boland just as much as Martin's on the back of Plastow here. So it's Noah's Ark as it stands. You can see Boland running slightly wide onto the gravel once again. These guys will be seeing the clouds coming in and fearing that rain. Warmington's gamble on the wet tyres. I mean, he's 15 seconds off the back of the field, so he's a long way back. But bear in mind, the pit lane at Spa is long. So, if he saves himself an entire pit stop, he could potentially still be in the mix, but it's just a problem as to whether, 9 minutes on wet tyres and dry conditions, the wets will actually work at all when it actually rains, and we still haven't seen the rain, so I don't think the gamble's paid off for Warmington, but you know what, I absolutely give him credit for taking a risk and giving it a go.
Or it was an amusing mistake from up, so only he knows. That's the only thing I can see. I would have think it was a mistake. When the timing screen was showing the drivers were loading in, a number of drivers were looking at the wet tyres, but all of them, bar Adrian Warmington, switched over to the dries. So whatever the consideration was, Adrian Warmington decided or forgot to switch it back to dries. So as we continue to watch, where the top four getting very, very close in the braking zone. Oh, a bit of a wander there for Bradley Krop. It keeps the Aston Martin pointing to the right direction. He's putting all the pressure he can on David Wrench ahead of him in the Mercedes, who's trying his best to stay in touch with Dan Cross. So this particular group very, very hard as Mark Gladwell in the Mercedes tries to do an outside maneuver on the McLaren of Scott Eastwood. No dice for him. Right behind him is Ben Weston in the purple and white Porsche. A pressure 4.5 then for the Mercedes. Three very different cars, the McLaren, the Mercedes and the Porsche. Different strengths and weaknesses, as that's Ben Weston having a look on the inside of Stavelot. That's good racing room given by Mark Gladwell, but he has the momentum and maintains the position.
Good stuff there from these drivers towards the back. We're having great battles all the way through the field here as Gladwell, Eastwood and Weston fight it out for P15. That looks like Matty Chambers defending from John Finch. Only 0.3 of a second between these two. In fact, he's just got past, has Matty Chambers, through on John Finch, who's been doing a great job as well. Both of these drivers doing a good job so far today. And there's another battle. We've got Dan Cross. Actually, Tom Stevens pulls over and lets him go. He's letting them all go, so I wonder what's going on here. Maybe a slowdown penalty or something for Tom Stevens, but he's now disappeared briefly, so not sure what's going on for the Porsche driver. But either way, he is now down to P11. Seems to be back online at the moment as the clouds continue to roll in here at Spa, and I think maybe some internet troubles or something for Tom Stevens, but he's now going to be passed by Adam Barron in the other Porsche, so it's not been a good day for Porsche so far, it has to be said.
No, indeed. I think it looks like Tom Stevens is having some technical difficulty. There was no reason for him to suddenly slow down there, unless he had some kind of slowdown warning, as that is Bradley Krop on the inside line trying to get alongside. Gives a bit of a door check to David Wrench. Does he manage to do it? No, the Mercedes holds on to what is now ninth position. The Aston is not done yet. Trying to look on the outside line, coming down towards Stavolo. Towards Campos, I beg your pardon. Not realistic overtaking opportunity there. Pete Plasto in the top echelon, getting very close to the back of Chris Pauly. That is exactly what Chris Boden wants. He needs pressure being applied to his pursuers to give him some breathing space. Riding on board then with the number 27 Aston of Bradley Kropp as he continues his amazing duel with David Wrench.
18 minutes, not 18 minutes, 28 minutes to go in this race still. Boland sets a 29.3 and is the quickest of the front runners. In fact, Martin's 29.3 as well. I mean, all the lap times are super close from the front group. They're super close from this group as well. We do kind of have those two big packs and then a couple of stragglers in between, with Forrest and Chambers 5th and 6th at the moment. Obviously Finch on the back of Chambers as well. But it's great to see these packs around here, Chris, as well. You've obviously got the slipstream taking effect here at Spa, keeps drivers in the mix, and it encourages close racing. As soon as the drivers are close together in the middle of this lap here at Spa, the flow of the circuit just brings them all together, and it's fascinating to watch. So thoroughly enjoying this race so far. It's only going to get more exciting as well, as we now have less than 27 minutes to go. The rain may well be coming, but drivers are going to have to be thinking about pit stops. The only man we've seen come in so far, Darren Barris, down in 19th. He's gapped Warmington on the wets, but he's 16 seconds off the back of the field. So I'm going to guess Barris is out on slicks. Took his pit stop very, very early. We don't know why. Maybe tactical, maybe another issue at play, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that one as well.
Look at this top four. As you can say, you could tie the four of them together. They're that close. Chris Boland, the only one with any kind of breathing space. Pete Plasto would love some breathing space at the moment. He has had the Scotsman glaring into his soul all race long as the various swaps of position. Oh, we are being told it might actually be raining at Stavolo, which is where this group are just about to arrive to. So now it has been getting darker at this particular point in the circuit. We see Plasto gaining a bit of momentum on Chris Pauly. Chris Boland is starting to build a little bit of a gap in the BMW. Now we're just getting towards Campos and Stavolo now. So has the rain arrived? It seems to be coming from, or we understand it's coming from this direction. Can't see it at the moment. Well, as Chris Boland makes it rain stone chips, having wandered a little bit too wide. So no rain yet, but if it's coming from there, that's going to make the tail end of the lap very, very interesting. Look at Pauly going for that very defensive posture, coming up into Blanchimont, hugging that inside line. Keeps Pete Plasto back, breaking the momentum of the chasing Aston. That's going to give Ryan Martin a potential opportunity to attack. The Scotsman has a look on the inside line coming out to the chicane, but does not commit to it. The three of them so close.
This is amazing to watch. You can almost feel the mist coming in. And then, of course, it comes down to how heavy is the rain going to be falling? Whereabouts on the circuit? Can you survive on dry tyres? Do we need wets? All of these questions, none of the answers, but we're very excited to see what happens. The lap times at the moment still very much dry, so there's zero rain. Even if there's a little bit of rain, you won't actually see the lap times affected too much at the beginning. It's really once that water starts sticking to the ground and becomes standing water, that's when you begin to have issues. Meanwhile, Sean Watson potentially having a bit of an issue there. Through Pouon, he's coming up to, we're going to see a replay actually, if he did have an issue through Pouon. Yeah, that is not a potential issue, that is a big issue for Sean Watson, and thankfully he actually did a great job there to slide through the gravel and get the brakes on before a dangerous accidental rejoin. So really good recovery work there from Sean Watson, but that would have been a stressful moment. Now that, Chris, is rain and it's not dirt chips.
No, most certainly that is the wet slippery stuff falling from sky. And again, as you say, John, it's coming in from that side of the circuit. Spa is that big. It can be bone dry and burning hot at one end of the track and an absolute monsoon at the other. Again, Spa, and it's raining there as well. So that's the other end of the circuit. That's at Normandy, at Bruxelles. So the rain has most certainly arrived. Now it's going to be who has got the biggest, who's taken the biggest bravery pills and going to stay out on the dries. But yeah, are they going to stay on the dries? Is it going to rain hard? Well, Chris Boland is making the most of it at the moment, giving himself a little bit, depositing some stone chips whilst he's at it. I think that's probably moving. I think it was Sean Watson's depositing gravel from earlier on. That can't be spray already, surely. That's it's too early for that.
It's raining heavy, Chris. It's raining very heavy.
It is.
And to be honest, you know, Boland's probably got the toughest job here. Yes, he's got the visibility, as we see how close the three behind him get. Polly, Plasto, and Martin, nothing splitting them. But Boland's the one who's really got to take the chances here and discover how late he can brake. The others can kind of just follow suit and do whatever Boland doesn't do if Boland goes in too deep. So it's going to be a voyage of discovery for the BMW out in front. But honestly, that rain is coming down hard. Warmington's too far away to get in the mix here, it has to be said. But it's all about now, when do you gamble on a pit stop? When do you come in and put the wets on? It feels like it's, I mean, if the rain continues at this rate, we're going to need wet tyres here. But
the sun's still out. So this is the strange thing. There's still sunshine out there, but it's absolutely hoying it down. Well,
wow.
There you go. So Boland and Martin choose to continue, but Paulie and Plasto decide now is the time. So Matt Forrest has chosen to come in. So Matt Chambers has not. Neither has John Finch. So we've got a real split here. Quite a few drivers have come in. Wrench and Croc have come in, as well as Dan Cross have all come into the pit. But what do they reappear on? Surely they're going to be thinking about the wet tyres. Like it's really chucking it down in some position. I can't see any rain there at all.
I don't think you would pit this early and take dries. You know, there'd be no reason. So I think
it is
have to be going on to wets. Yeah, it is raining. It's raining heavy as well. It's raining very heavy. But can they get away with one more lap on the slicks? I honestly think there probably is one more lap on the slicks out there for Boland and Martin. But I think by the end of the lap, they are going to be skating around. So it'll be fascinating to watch their progress, just to see how much Boland and Martin are going to be struggling. At the moment, though, it doesn't look too bad. There's still a lot of temperature in the surface. Boland, okay, understeering a little bit there, but nothing terrible. Martin, not having any issues. He was flying through there. I swear that was quicker than he was doing it in the dry. Maybe that's just a Scottish thing. There's a lot of wet weather experience going on up here. But, I mean, Martin now closed the gap to 1.2 seconds to Boland. So maybe the Scotsman, with his extra wet weather life experience, using that to his advantage and closing the gap on our race leader. We're now down into under a second. Of course, these guys are likely to be in at the end of this lap if the rain continues this hard. Where will they be relative to Paulie and Plasto? Fascinating stuff.
So the top six are not on wet weather tyres. So Boland, Martin, Chambers, Finch, Stevens and Barron. All of them still on slick tyres. And Ryan Martin really homing in on the BMW now. So, oh, that looks very deep again for Chris Boland. That could potentially cost him a bit of time. It's so precarious. They could easily fly off the road. Tom Stevens has gone off the road, apparently. I think he's managed to keep the momentum going. Oh, no, he hasn't. He's had a big moment down at Pouhon. He is on dry tyres, and he's very much struggling. Can we get a replay of what happened to the Porsche? There it is. No grip whatsoever, and round he went. That's Adam Barron in the number 5 Porsche skating past him. So, well, the sun is now very much disappeared as there's nearly contact between Boland and Martin. They're so close now. Oh, it's going to be a battle of the pit stops between the BMW and Mercedes teams. Oh, Ryan Martin, nothing can stop the man. But he's certainly making that extra lap work, and Chris Boland does manage to slow the BMW down. He's carrying on. Wow. So Ryan Martin flashing his lights. Well, yeah, we see you, Ryan. That's now, is he gambling on the rain clearing up quite quickly, or the rain shower being very short, I wonder?
I mean, just to give you context, Martin's last lap of 41, so he's 12 seconds off dry pace already. It's only going to get worse. Now, I think wet tyres are probably not going to be much better. We can't really see what the wet lap times are, because obviously the laps for those drivers are out laps out of the pit lane. So it's going to be very tricky for us to tell, at least for another couple of laps, just how quick those on the wet tyres are actually going to be going. But it looks like Paulie's just done a 2:37 on that lap, including exiting the pit lane, compared to Martin's 41 while staying out. So I mean, we'll have to wait and see, as I say, as the timing clears out, but that would suggest to me it was the right call to come in for wets on that opening lap, which means Martin is going to have massive trouble here when he eventually comes into the pits. Is he hanging on and hoping for the rain to stop? It doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon.
No, it doesn't. So here comes Chris Paulie then. Here, the Welshman, he's going to jump up. So Chris Boland is out on circuit, so he has come back out. He's currently second position, but what's going to be the race lead when Ryan Martin does eventually come back into the pits. That has really given him some distance. So that extra lap really paying off for the BMW driver. Chris Pauly back in third. Pete Plasto with now 5 seconds. Bearing in mind, those top 4 were just glued together before the pit stops began. He's now down to pit times. Well, let's have a look at the pit stop times. No, very similar. Pete Plasto is a little bit slower, but it's mainly the outlap that's been the biggest decider. Pete Plasto lost maybe 2 seconds. Oh, Ryan Martin's off the road. He has gone off the road at the final chicane. So this is a huge... he's giving himself a big old challenge, is Ryan Martin.
Yeah, this is too wet now. This is way too wet. And I think he's gone a lap too far here, Chris, because I actually thought the guys who pitted first might be the best, and then he's gone off again. So absolute nightmare for Martin. He's going to absolutely lose all of that time he's gained here. Because, I mean, obviously he drove so well in that first extra lap. He got past Boland. And he didn't come in, and now he's going to lose the back end. It's all gone wrong for our championship leader. He's going to need those drop scores at this rate, because Martin is going to be losing hand over fist to Chris Boland, Pauly, Plasto, and the likes. He's just taken it 1 lap too far. Boland got the strategy spot on, and Martin is going to be absolutely floundering here. Will he even manage to stay inside the top 10? I'm not convinced, because look how much he is struggling on those dry tyres, and don't be surprised to see Boland, that gap coming down significantly very, very soon.
Yeah, absolutely so. As Wrench and Cross continue their duel, that's Sean Watson coming up to Ryan Martin to unlap himself, and that's Finch in trouble. That's John Chambers Finch in trouble, and Chambers is round down at Blanchimont. So it's all going haywire for those that are on the wet tyres, let alone Ryan Martin, who's about to have someone unlap himself from Ryan Martin. You've never ever seen it, but Ryan Martin would have lost a catastrophic amount of time from the spins, but also having to tiptoe his way around the remainder of the lap. So here comes Chris Boland then. He is going to be very, very thankful. Oh no, that's David Wrench round. Down at in between Campus and Stavelo. There's Matty Chambers. We've seen him have some issues. Oh my goodness me.
Deep breath required. Because obviously, these drivers aren't going as quick as they were, even the ones on wet. So Martin, he's still got a chance of being in an okay position. But you're right, he would have lost so much time there. There are big gaps in this field too. A lot of drivers lacking confidence. Clearly, Martin wasn't lacking any confidence in the wet. We saw him literally drive up to the back of our reigning champion, Chris Boland, take the position. But now you can see Martin's already down to 3rd place. In fact, Plasto's going to get him as well. I think Forrest and Barron are going to be close. No, Martin's still stationary. So yes, as we suspected, as he now gets dropped down off the jacks onto his wet tyres, Martin is going to lose a handful of positions. But it's not as bad as it could have been for the Scotsman. We know how quick he is in the wet, how much confidence he had in the slicks there. So let's see how he can come back through this field, if he can at all. But what I have to say, Chris, is Chris Boland, our reigning champion, making a champion's decision there. That was calculated to perfection, and it's really, really difficult to get it right without, the wonders of hindsight. But Boland has nailed it there. Yeah,
that he has. Wow, what can Ryan Martin do? We've seen him work his way through the field before. He had a big spin in Thruxton in the wet and still managed to claim the win. I think in the second race that happened. In John Finch is in trouble. He's lost a couple of positions, it looks like, and there he is. Crikey! Everyone exploring the the Belgian countryside up at Radion. What happened here? And there we go. The tail just not having it. Does he keep it out of the wall? Yes, he does. But I bet there was some clenching going on in there.
Certainly was. He had to reverse as well out of the pit lane exit, and we saw Wrench getting on the curb. Obviously, curbs, painted wet lines, and there was Bradley Kropp running wide just behind Tom Stevens. That was a bit sketchy as well. But these wet conditions are so tricky now. Drivers are going to have their eyes on stocks, and obviously the spray is out too, making the visibility very tricky to follow another car. Chris Pauly, he's got Plasto behind him. That's where he will want him to be. He's a long way behind Boland though, and this is also where we're going to see drivers experimenting with different lines. You can see just how much standing water there is out here on circuit, and look at the car control on display here from our leading group. I mean, they have to be so tentative and smooth with the inputs, but also be ready to catch any wild moments, as Plasto uses a lot of curb there, heading now down through Stavelo. So brave driving, skilled driving from all of these guys, and I mean, it's going to be great fun to watch these guys slipping and sliding around, and I think we'll still see some great battles, just at a slightly slower speed.
you can hear the really gentle throttle application, the very tentative driving as we ride on board with Pete Plasto.
Sorry, David Wrench is gone as well, I think, Chris. We may have lost David Wrench from this race.
Oh dear.
Oh, that's Martin.
That's close. That's Ryan Martin. That's down at campus again. That's where he had a spin before, and yeah, even on the wet tires, it's very, very, very difficult. And now he's got an absolute face full of spray. So this was whilst he was on his own. The rear tires just not up to temperature, and yeah, Granny went.
Oh, that's a bad rejoin as well from Martin. He should not have reversed right into the middle of the track there. And Ryan, obviously, he's an experienced driver. He knows better than that, and he reversed too far along. So that could be a penalty potentially for an unsafe rejoin for Ryan Martin, because he did put a couple of drivers off. So it's going from bad to worse for our championship leader. And Spa was looking so good for him at one point, just on that extra lap there after the first round of stops, and it's just all unraveled in a flash. I mean, he's going to have to get his act together in terms of, stopping the mistakes just to try and maintain his position, let alone get back into the podium spots.
Ooh, that was so close to the back of Dan Cross. But I bet you the red mist is descending. There's a bit of frustration really kicking in for Ryan Martin. So, yeah, you can understand it. But look at that. He just cannot see. He's having to jump out the spray just to know where to turn in. As I thought Dan Cross was wandering off the road there, but he's heavily compromised. But Ryan Martin had nowhere to use that extra momentum. Look at the standing water. Oh, that's great fun for us. The drivers must be having a really, really hard time.
I'm absolutely okay with that, sitting in my nice dry office talking about this race. I mean, it is great fun as well to race in the wet, don't get me wrong, but obviously when you're in the heat of the moment, you're in the heat of the battle, especially when it's not going your way, it becomes very difficult and stressful. And Martin obviously down in P8, looking at the back of Dan Cross, but not able to make a move into the chicane. He's going to try again now down towards Bruxelles. He's going to look to the inside, just even so you can see the corner, let alone actually go for a move. And you can see Dan Cross managing to get that Mercedes turned in. It's worth remembering as well, all of these drivers. Oh, we've got a spinner, and it's Matty Chambers. So Chambers is now around. He's going to reverse back on to the road, but he's got a long gap before Tom Stevens comes along, so that's okay, as Martin gets a bit sideways yet again. But yeah, all these cars are on fixed setups, Chris, so there's nothing these drivers could have done to the setup to make it better in the wet. They just have to deal with what's underneath them. And that's what these drivers are having to do at the moment. Looks like Boland is dealing with it brilliantly. Plasto has closed the gap back in again on Pauly, so we'll have to keep an eye on that one. Barron up to 5th, by the way. 6 places gained. Adam Barron, who wasn't having a good race earlier on, suddenly finds himself in the top 5. Yeah,
great recovery drive from the number 5 Porsche. Saying earlier that the Porsche may well be struggling a little bit with the weather. Now, it's very much turning the tables on our drivers as Tom Stevens has had a problem. I was saying that the Porsches are doing well, but Tom Stevens in the second Porsche has had trouble. Jack Trunwitt through Pouan, it looks like, has had some difficulty as well. So yeah, Eastwood in the McLaren is up 6 positions. So
there he goes. He's in the wall.
Oh no!
You've cursed him.
Yeah, that was on me. I mean, I'm not paying the repair bill, but
all on Chris, Scott.
Yeah.
All on Chris. I didn't do anything.
I'll take that one. So what's happened with Ryan Martin? Has he come together with the Mercedes? Oh no, that's again exactly the same mistake into the wall. Oh, was he lucky that wall stopped there? He's going to park it in. Okay, he drove it into the wall himself. So he's now, has he retired? He has. That's good. He's out. So Ryan Martin, I think frustration potentially getting the better of him. He has retired from the race. That is what happened with Scott Eastwood. It didn't look like there was impact there, just the rear letting go and the front paying the consequence.
Oh, shock for Ryan Martin. I mean, it's just gone so far downhill, so steeply downhill, so quickly for our championship leader, and he just kept making the same mistakes in the same places. I don't know what it is. The car obviously is on a fixed setup, so he's got the same setup as every other Mercedes in the field, but he just could not keep it together, and in the end, he's pulled out of the race. So it's going to have to be a drop score once again for Martin. And thankfully, he's got that safety, but it obviously takes away one of those weekends. So, I mean, it definitely keeps things exciting in terms of the championship battle. But he just couldn't keep a cool head, and he stopped, he kept making the same mistakes. And for a man of that much experience and skill, it's just a disappointing race, it has to be said.
Even the greats make mistakes, and even they can lose their heads, as we've just seen. So he was very much a wet weather recovery expert in Thruxton, but Spa just not going his way. It was like you say, it was the same mistake in the same place. I've been there. I know how frustrating it is. Maybe he felt that it was safer for him and all concerned as Blastos wandered off the road and poo on. Maybe he just felt that it was safer for him to retire. I suspect he was just, oh, again, you saw the tail of the Aston Martin twitch there.
Stevens just doing a little bit of blinking again, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. These conditions are incredibly difficult. And even for someone, you know, with the skill of Ryan Martin, it is so hard to keep these cars on the straight and narrow around here at Spa. We will see lots of mistakes from lots of drivers. And it happens to everyone, you know. We see it across all series, and obviously, for whatever reason, it just wasn't working out for Ryan in this particular race, and maybe he did feel like he'd be better off on the sidelines, and we actually saw him almost crash into a parked car as well. I think it was Warmington who pulled over, as off goes Bradley Kropp. So Kropp now drops outside down to 10th place, demonstrating exactly how difficult it is to stay on the road. He's got a big gap though back to Jack Trunwitt, so he will rejoin. And you can just see, if you can keep your nose clean and avoid those mistakes around here, Chris, you're going to be picking up plenty of positions without doing too much.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how the lap times fall now. People may be getting into their rhythm, but the lap times are just getting worse and worse and worse. And now over 3 minutes for anybody. Pete Plasto was the quickest of the top three, and even that was only by about half a second the last time around. So they're all coming across the line now. So it's a 3:01.2 from Boland. What about Chris Pauly? A 3:02.3, a 3:03.3 for Pete Plasto. So yeah, the conditions just continue to get worse and worse, and this is going to continually add to the challenge. The tires will do what they can, but after a while, when the weather gets too bad, they just won't stay warm, as that's a very, very wayward Mercedes as Gladwell that has just about kept it on the island. But we're seeing this more and more. Darren Berris, yeah, that was a brave maneuver in these conditions. You know, skating very gingerly around the outside of Mark Gladwell. So, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. Well, it's fantastic from our position. There's a lot of, I'm sure there's a fair amount of words being said from the drivers in their various cockpits, but wow.
I think we're reaching the crossover point from wet tires to life jackets, Chris. It's getting pretty sketchy out there, and you know, this is really tricky. Now it's a case of survival, and you see obviously the lap time gaps just get bigger and bigger in these conditions because every driver is just fighting for the grip that they've got available, as Forrest carrying good speed into the chicane. He's 9 seconds off of Pete in third, so it's been a, you know, I've said it all the way through, it's been a good showing from Matthew Forrest this time out, and he's looking at one of his best results of the season potentially, but with only 5.5 minutes to go and the lap time's so slow. You know, 3 minutes lap. I mean, I think I did a 3-minute lap in my Mazda MX-5 around Spa last time I was here. So the lap times are very slow at the moment, and it means that we may only have a couple of laps left in this race. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. And it's just at this point a case of survival, especially for Boland. It looks like he's got this in the bag, 8.5 seconds out in front. He certainly does not, because one spin, one mistake, and it could all come unraveled. And speaking of mistakes, there goes Plasto, second of the championship, and he's crashed into the wall as well. He's still got a big gap to Forrest, so he's not going to lose too much, but that Aston will have damage. Now Forrest is on for a podium potentially, and Plasto's going to have to try and wrestle that damaged Aston home. So how bad is the damage? It's what we just said, Chris. It's so easy to make a mistake.
Yeah, even the greats make mistakes. Pete Plasto will be kicking himself for that. He had Chris Pauly inside, wasn't closing in on him. He's just maintaining that gap. As we now see John Finch having a go at Tom Stevens on the inside line of Pearl on the Porsche, not defending that in the slightest. I don't blame him, frankly. It's just everyone is just surviving at this particular moment. You've got to think that Tom Stevens cannot even see the back of that bright green Aston Martin. The spray is that thick. So, yeah, brave man to drive in the tyre tracks of the Aston. So here, well, speaking of Astons, here is Plasto and Forrest. So it wasn't necessarily a big impact, but these cars are hard enough to drive when they are in perfect condition, let alone with a rearranged nose. And that is, yeah, that's a lot of damage to the front of Pete Plasto's car. But Matt Forrest has gone for a bit of a wander into the chicane. That is just the breathing space. Pete Plasto may need to hold on to that podium.
3-minute dead, 0.7 from Pauly on that lap. Very, very impressive indeed. Potentially 2 laps to go if Boland can keep the pace up, though. He's got an 18-second gap over Plasto, and we've got, what's that, 3.5 minutes to go. So it's going to be very, very close, but I think Boland's going to make it round in time and get that extra final lap in. He might not want it, let's be honest, as Matty Chambers seems to be lifting off into the hairpin, but of course at this point, into the chicane, sorry, but at this point it is literally, you know, you're watching out for aquaplaning. In fact, no, that's why Matty Chambers was going slow. I thought it might have been, I didn't want to say anything, but Chambers had gone off through the exit of Blanchimont, lucky to avoid any barriers. And obviously in these conditions, you know, the gaps become bigger because these mistakes are happening, and he's going to rejoin and Finch is going to get him down the inside. So can Chambers retake that place from Finch? He's got a couple of laps to do so, but he's going to have to avoid any mistakes in the process. And yeah, you know, Plasto has a lot of damage on that Aston Martin. We saw him crash into the wall earlier, but at the end of the day, Chris, he could still win this race. You just never know. It's that sort of race at the moment. But I'm sure these drivers will be looking forward to seeing the checkered flag at this rate. I'm not, but they will be.
So true. I mean, someone run out and steal the checkered flag. I want this race to carry on until they run out of fuel, which probably isn't going to be that many more laps after when it's supposed to end anyway. But yeah, we'll see. Exactly as you say, John. One mistake from that BMW could drop Chris Boland, any number of seconds. But he's been pretty bulletproof so far. I can't even say the word properly. Bulletproof for this race thus far. So of our 22 starting cars, 17 still run. We've lost 5 in the course of the race. We lost Jack Ajewski very early. Oh no, that's Tim Hastings. So he worked his way back up to 12th. Has lost a spot to Ben Weston.
So much standing water in the way through Eau Rouge. So I wonder if he's just caught some of that potentially. Let's see.
Have a look then, see. It's already had damage. I mean, there is. There you go. So there is. Eau Rouge, Rouge being river. Being red, O being water or river, very much living up to its name. Yeah, that car is not staying straight even in a straight, so that is going to be horrible for Hastings to drive. John Finch has kept on of that 7th position then. Matt Chambers having his own issues earlier on. Nearly less than a minute to go now. And, John Finch go too far. Chris Boland, I think, is just about to cross the line now. So there he is in the BMW. So
he's backed off, I think.
Well, another minute to go, so he's not going to sit there that long. No, he hasn't. A 3-minute lap time, which in these conditions is a competitive lap time. That's Eastwood going for a wander again. So heading out to the Wild Wild West was Scott Eastwood. Well, let's see what he did. Oh, that's... Yeah. Oh, that's going to hurt.
I was going to say, it looked like he had damage to his left rear, and now you see why. So that is going to be a very difficult McLaren to haul around for another 2 laps, of course. You can see it's out of alignment. He's down in 14th as Scott, but he's got a 14-second gap. Make that 11-second gap to Darren Barris behind. So yeah, plenty of driving still to be done for Eastwood to take that car home in a plausible, pretty good 15th position, or 14th position I should say at the moment for the McLaren driver. Meanwhile, Chambers has caught back up to Finch again after his spin, so he's going to have a lap to make that move stick, and then obviously hang on to it. Plasto still doing a good job to hold off Forrest for P3.
That's not smoke, that's spray. That is just the level of visibility Matt Chambers does not have. Is the sun coming back out again? It's on the start finish straight. There were some shadows, it looked like, as we came over the line. But yeah, Matty Chambers is hustling that bright green Aston very, very hard. He can't even see it. He's still challenging for that 7th position. Backs off a little earlier than he possibly needed to, and quite wisely so. Has that forced a mistake onto John Finch? Possibly not, but you can just see how the Mercedes is struggling to find any kind of traction whatsoever as they come up and over Radion onto the Camel Straight once again. Oh my goodness me. I mean, fair play to anybody that sees the checkered flag. This has been such a challenging race, but yeah, what a great finish to this round we have seen.
To be fair, I don't think anyone's actually going to see the checkered flag. They're just going to have to assume it's there. Maybe Boland's the only one that's the exception here, and he'll be, getting fairly close now to finishing this race, just half a lap to go. Chambers chasing down Finch. Will he make a move? You can see him focusing on the exit through Radion to try and get the run, but then of course getting up over that curb, it gives you the right line, it allows you to straighten up, but the curb itself is wet. Meanwhile, Finch goes wide, through goes Chambers down the inside, so that is a position swap. Matty Chambers back up to P7, but now that he's leading the field, can he get through safely, or is Finch going to make that move once again? Boland now, though, with just a couple of corners to go, Chris, the BMW, and it will potentially be, if I have this right, is this going to be Boland's first victory of the season? I actually think it might be.
I do believe it is. I'll have a quick look at
It is,
that.
yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is the first. Is it even the first podium for Chris Boland this season?
It is the first. It will be the first podium for Chris Boland, which is remarkable.
Me.
No, second podium. Second podium.
Second podium. We've seen before. But your winner here in a very rain-soaked Spa, the number 1 BMW. Oh, you have every right to flash your lights, sir. Chris Boland. I bet he's happy about that. Chris Pauly comes home in second position. The Welshman in the number 88 Mercedes. But a man, I bet he's very happy to hang on to his podium spot. Pete Plasto, considering he head-butted the wall, and Matt Forrest was so close, so nearly there. But Pete Plasto, fair play to him, getting that third position. There's a replay of Tom Stevens. What has he done over in Pouon? Has the tail just let go? Yep, he hit the brakes coming through the exit of Plasto. Didn't paint the wall, as several other cars have done today. But, yeah, managed to keep it out of the concrete.
Just look, by the way, at the flag waver as they cross the line. He looks so wet and fed up and done. It's the most, it's the most sodden flag waving I've ever seen on iRacing. But that's not important. Chambers finishing P7 ahead of John Finch is what we should really be paying attention to. And Crop looking like he's got a very battered Aston Martin coming through for P10.
He'll be very glad to get out of that. That's right. Oh my goodness me. I bet he has been just willing the checkered flag to come out. Isn't the flag waver in iRacing usually like the most energetic man in the world?
Well, that's kind of why I noticed the contrast, Chris. He looks like he absolutely desperately needs a hot towel and a shower.
Let's see, can Steve Wardle, can he wardle his way past? Can he get any sight, let alone any traction from the back of Mark Gladwell? And is that Darren? Yeah, that's Darren Berris just ahead of them. Jack Trunwick has crossed the line in 11th. Ben Weston 12th. Tim Hastings in his maiden race in this series in 13th. Eastwood is going to come home somewhere in 14th position. And then is this trio. The McLaren just can't do anything against those ahead. Just cannot find any traction anywhere. So Darren Berris comes home 15th. Mark Gladwell 16th. And Steve Wardle in 17th. I actually think, if I'm right, everyone that has survived finished on the lead lap. They did. So that's the first time we've seen that. I mean, we had people unlapping themselves from, at the time, race leader Ryan Martin. What a race.
It was brilliant, wasn't it? Sensational. I mean, considering as well it was a 40-minute endurance rather than a 20-minute sprint race, remarkable that we had everyone finish on the lead lap. But then, I mean, the lead lap was about 3 minutes long. Let's be real with those rainy conditions. But yeah, Chris Boland, Chris Pauly, the Chris's, both in the commentary box and on circuit, doing a fine job this evening. A 1-2 for Boland and Pauly, with Plasto third. Matthew Forrest, for me, potentially driver of the day. P4 for the veterans, with Adam Barron a great comeback to P5. Dan Cross, Matty Chambers, John Finch, Tom Stevens, and Bradley Crop rounding out the top 10.
Wow, what a race that was. I was certainly looking forward to it. Once again, we have not been disappointed by our drivers. I genuinely hope we get our top three to have a chat to us, because again, we have had an absolutely fantastic race. Jack Trundry 11, Ben Weston 12, Tim Hastings 13, Scott Eastwood 14, Darren Berris in 15th, Mark Gladwell in 16th, Steve Whartle, the last of our runners, in 17th, Sean Watson, I don't think was running towards the end. We lost also Ryan Martin, Adrian Warmington, David Wrench, and Jack Ijuski from that race. Right, we have 4 people waiting. We actually have our top 4. So let's start with Matt Forrest, shall we? Your driver of the day, and I don't blame you whatsoever. I condone that particular message. So let's start just outside of the podium with our 4th place finisher, Matt Forrest. Are you with us?
Good evening.
So close, so very close. But
it's not fun.
Yeah, wow. Talk us through it, because that looked insane towards the second half of the race.
Oh, well, I mean, it was good in the dry, and then all hell broke loose. And it was just a case of, initially it was all right, and then the last couple of laps, it was horrible. You just couldn't put the power down anywhere. And I wasn't really looking where I was going. I was just looking at the traction control lights on the car and just trying to keep the revs under that. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, though.
It's like those guys on runways with coloured buttons guiding aircraft around. You were just basically looking at lights for guidance. Oh, unbelievable. So I think it's the first time we've spoken to you, Matt. So
it is.
So well, welcome to the box. A fine,
the warm and dry commentary box. Very warm, very cozy.
So this is the first time we've had a chat. If you are able to, can you give us an insight on what your 9 to 5 is?
Yes, so I am the head of IT for GE Aerospace UK. So I spent 10 years in the armed forces and then left, and now I'm the head of IT for GE Aerospace.
Ah, I see. Well, that was certainly something to me. Will we be seeing more of you inside the top echelons, or do you think the weather was what played the biggest part?
I don't know. I mean, I was quite quick in the dry, and I like Spa, so we'll see. I mean, I'm putting in the practice now because I've been out for a couple of years, so I'm trying to get more practice in. So hopefully, I'll get quicker and be a bit more competitive.
Excellent stuff. We very much looking forward to seeing your very multicolored Aston in the top echelons of the results. Any questions, John?
Yeah, well, first of all, well done, Matt. For me, you were my driver of the day today, just because I thought you kept it out of trouble really well, and you put on a great show, great result as well, and got so close to that podium. So, yeah, it's now that we're speaking to you for the first time, just talk us through how your season's been as a whole and how much you've been enjoying the series.
Oh, I've really enjoyed the series. I was in the GT Masters with Pete and Chris for quite a few years. And when they invited me in, I couldn't wait to get driving. And when they told me it was GT4, I'd never driven it before. So I just picked a car at random, and I'm having so much fun. The racing's great, and long may it continue.
Yeah, couldn't agree with that more. So much we'd love to chat to you. We do have a few people to get through, so
no, by all means.
Very much hope we do get the chance to speak to you again as the season continues. Brilliant result. Well done, Matt Forrest.
Thank you.
Right, let's have a chat with the first man whose surname begins with P for the night, and the man who had an argument with the wall. Pete Plastow, are you with us?
Good evening. How are you?
What was going through your mind when you had an argument with the wall?
I was just happy not to get the meatball flag, to be honest. Yeah, really frustrating race, actually.
So you would look really set to be pressuring Chris Pauly for a potential second, and then the weather just got the better of you. But I mean, overall, what a stunning race! You're right in the midst of that lead group, right from the off. Again, talk us through it from your side.
Yeah, so I made a good start, managed to get in front of Ryan. I assume he had a slowdown because he dropped back a little bit. And then it was the four of us basically, up until it started raining, and then it was a bit of a lucky dip on when you boxed. And I jumped my pit box as well, so I had to reverse into that, and then I spun on the pit exit, and then I had that spin into the wall as well, so I messed up big time, and I should definitely have been second. With my pace in the rain, I think I was a bit quicker than Chris, but it is what it is.
I wouldn't be too hard on yourself, Pete, considering how many of the top drivers in the series, including yourself, we saw going off. I mean, Ryan had multiple spins in the same places. We saw plenty of top drivers going off. So I think it was tricky conditions. I think a third place was a pretty good result.
There was no grip out there at all. I don't know where. I mean, we practiced in the wet, and it felt alright. And then just in this situation, there was no grip at all. So yeah, it's definitely difficult.
Have you practiced in a boat?
Maybe we should have done. Yeah.
Oh my goodness me! So where do we head to next? I didn't look on where our next track is. I should have done that. But
that's a good question. I have no idea.
No, it's Knock Hill. So again, we go back to tight and twisty. How do you think the Aston's going to fare in the Highlands of Scotland?
Yeah, that'll be interesting for sure. It's a bit of a front heavy understeery car, so we'll see how we get on. Hopefully we can jump the curves and use them to our advantage. Not much for pace around there. Really, is there not much speed? It's more about the ins and outs and the acceleration. So we'll see.
Pete Precision Plasto, then, is it going to be next time?
Well, if I can keep it out the wall, I'll be happy.
I have no doubt we will be speaking to you again, certainly as the season goes on. But well fought podium. You tried to throw it away, but you hung on to it nonetheless. Great job. Thank you very much, Pete Plasto.
Yes, thank you.
Next up is going to be the next man with the surname of P. It's Chris Pauly. Chris, are you with us?
Good evening, gents. How's it going?
Well, we've had a wonderful night. Talk us through it from your side. You had you were in that lead group towards the beginning. You had a lot of pressure in the rain until Pete decided to try and chew the wall. Talk us through it from your side.
It was pretty much that the whole race, wasn't it? It was I constantly had someone within a second of the rear, but I figured when the rain come down, the spray was going to kind of give me a bit of a buffer. And it, ultimately just kind of settled down into second, and it was kind of a bit of survival really in second, but managed to keep it there till the checkered flag.
Oh my goodness me! There must have been, everybody was slithering, everybody was losing traction. There must have been a number of kind of real clenching moments for you.
There were so many, but I was just the biggest stress I had was my Wi-Fi kept dropping in and out, so I was panicking that I was going to get booted. that was,
oh no!
That was playing on my mind for quite a few laps at the end there, but luckily it held it. We held it on the track, so yeah, it was all good.
The next up is Knock Hill. What are your thoughts towards the Scottish Highlands?
It's obviously I'd expect Ryan to be pretty quick there, given it's his local track, but we went there a few years ago and had a good result there. So it's good, but it's tricky it's easy to make a mistake there, if you know what I mean. So like all these races, I think we'd just go there and see how it goes.
Any questions, John?
What helped you make your decision over the pit stops? Because we did see, obviously, some drivers stay out a lap longer than you. In fact, Ryan Martin stayed out 2 laps longer, which was definitely a mistake. But what was it that made you come in when you did?
I'd done some testing, actually, yesterday. And what I found is when the rain comes down, we had, I think, moderate rain today. And I found when it comes down, you have about a lap of where it's kind of 50-50, whether it's good for dries, good for wets, and it depends where in the lap you are when that happens. So I think you saw that the rain came down kind of 3/4 of the way through the lap, and I was losing pace to Pete behind me. So me and Pete both went in the pits, and I saw Chris stay out, and I thought that's a 50-50 gamble, but he made about 5 seconds actually, so I think he made the right decision. But when I saw Ryan stay out another lap, I thought that's either he knows something we don't, or that's going to end in tears. And I think he just gambled a bit too much. So there was a 1 lap, I think, plus or minus 1 lap where it was the right time. And, in the end, it worked out all right for Chris, Pete and I.
Oh, awesome stuff. Well, a very well-deserved and well-fought second position. And I have no doubt we will speak to you again as the season continues. Great second place, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you very much. Chris Pauly.
Thanks, Bye.
I'm looking forward to this. Let's grab our race victor. Chris Boland, are you with us?
Good evening, gents.
He's got it. He's done it.
Absolutely. How about time?
My God. Now, admittedly, we didn't see a great deal of you in the rain because you just went. But
Perfect.
Was it as straightforward for you as it appeared to be, or were you trying to find where there was any kind of traction as well?
No, that was wetter than a gherkin out there. There was no grip out there whatsoever. We'd done practice sessions before, and there was some lines that were showing, and you'd hit that line thinking there's definitely grip here, and then the steering would go light on the back end and start coming round. So that was literally 3-minute laps of trying to find constant grip. So there was a lot. I'm glad you didn't look too closely at my performance, to be honest, because I was sideways for most of it. So would have been entertaining though.
I mean, we certainly saw a lot of you in the dry section, because you would gain a second's gap, and then that would kind of reel in a bit. So was it quite tense the first dip?
Yeah, when we sort of broke away from 4, I think Matty Forrest was sort of 5th. He was lurking, so I think if there were any issues, he'd have pounced straight away. But we sort of broke away as a 4 to start with. And if you know Spa fairly well, which most people do, it's one of those tracks where you can't really pull away too well from people. There's quite a big sort of draft element. So it was just a case of keeping it bang on the apex for every corner, and just making sure that I gave no opportunity for anyone to sort of pounce on me.
Can I actually ask you, Chris, in terms of the pit stop, what was going through your mind? Because we saw Ryan basically close you down in a lap, fantastic lap from him, and take the lead. And then what were you thinking when you saw him continue on for another one? Did you think there was any method in that madness, or were you convinced you made the right call? Because in the end, you definitely made the right call.
Yeah, so I may as well admit I've put in quite a bit of practice for this. Spa's probably top 2 favourite tracks, but so I put in a lot of effort for this week. And when Kingy said it was going to rain, I thought, right, we'll work out transition times and stuff like that. So I knew that if I was hovering around about a 2-minute 45 lap, that was the time to box. And my delta was nowhere near that when Pete and Chris came in. So I took the extra lap, which seemed to work out quite well. But yeah, when Ryan went past me for another lap, I think it must have almost confused him because he gained on me so quick in that sort of mid phase. I think it probably thought, I can easily get another lap out of this, but yeah, not to be.
No, very much not. We head to Knock Hill next week. What are your thoughts? Will the BMW shine, or has Spa been the swan song?
Well, potentially the swan song. Definitely. Well, it's unlikely I'll be there for next week. So potentially the week after, wherever we are for that. I think we're Navarra or somewhere like that.
It's Navarra, yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to try my best to get back for Knock Hill. Work dependent. If not, I will see you at Navarra.
Well, we hope we will see you next time out at Knock Hill, but we look forward to your company no matter where we are. Brilliant win, long overdue, and well deserved. Thank you very much, Chris Boland.
Thank you very much, Dance.
And that is going to bring an end to tonight's festivities. Thank you very much to those that have been with us either live or post-event. Your company is always very, very welcome. As is yours, Mr. Munro. You keep me company in the commentary box. You tolerate me well. And you never show any sign of grumbling about it.
Oh, thanks, Chris. That's our commentary relationship will continue to blossom for the rest of the season, and I know it's been great fun. It's been really, really good, and a massive thank you to Weatherman, Tire Guru, and corner name expert Tom Bryant in the production as well. And yeah, we can roll on the next race at Knock Hill, my home track. I obviously am a big fan of Knock Hill. We saw great racing there once again last year, so expect to see great racing once again this time around. Can Ryan Martin get back to the top on home turf? Scottish drivers tend to go well at Knock Hill, so don't be surprised. He'll certainly need a good one though, because I would say that this race kind of blew the championship wide open. Pete Plasto right in the mix, Holly's nearby as always as well. It's going to be an exciting end to the season.
Absolutely, Sam. Bear in mind, this was a double points round. This was the most painful time Ryan Martin could have actually retired. But either way, that's the decision he's taken. And I fully agree with you, John. This championship, he's not sewn up by any stretch of the imagination. Knock Hill is a wonderful little circuit. I've driven it in sim racing terms numerous times. It's so much the polar opposite to Spa, and we very much hope that you lovely people watching along or live or post event would join us then. Until next time, thank you very much, and good night!